Hey everyone, welcome to today's video on staying warm without fire, even in extreme conditions. I'm so glad you're here because this information might save your life one day, or at least save you from a whole lot of misery. We're going to talk about real, practical ways to stay cozy when it's freezing cold. You've got no power, no matches, and no fireplace to light up. But first, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you find value in this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. And if you want to support the channel, definitely check out the tagged products listed in the description. Those are items that can help you boost your cold weather preparedness. Now let's dive in, because when the temperature drops and the lights go out, knowledge is your best friend. Let's start by imagining a scenario. Power lines have gone down in a massive snowstorm. Outside, it's nothing but swirling flakes and plummeting temperatures. There's a sudden hush throughout the neighborhood as every electrical hum disappears. The thermostat in your home starts to dip. You're all huddled in a corner, and there's no easy way to start a fire. Or picture being stuck in your car on a lonely stretch of highway, stranded without the option to keep your engine running. Or the ultimate challenge? Maybe you're out in the wilderness, miles from the nearest road, and you just realized your matches are wet or lost. These scenarios can catch anyone off guard, which is why learning to harness and keep your own heat becomes crucial. You might think, well, if there's no fire, there's no heat at all, right? Not exactly. The truth is, your body is already a heat generator, and you can amplify that advantage by creatively insulating and protecting yourself from the major sources of heat loss. In the next sections, we'll talk about what those sources of heat loss are, how to prevent them, and how to improvise shelters, clothing layers, or small-scale heat sources that don't require open flames. By the end, you'll have a whole toolkit of strategies. Whether you're at home during a blackout, stranded in your car, or toughing it out in the great outdoors. I want to set the stage by explaining how you actually lose heat, because understanding this is the key to outsmarting the cold. We often take heat for granted, but it's always trying to escape you and equalize with the environment. So let's talk conduction, convection, and radiation, but we'll do it in straightforward terms. When we say conduction, we're basically talking about direct contact with cold surfaces. For instance, you sit down on the icy ground and your body heat gets sucked right into that cold earth. The fix here is simple enough. Put something between you and that cold surface, whether it's a blanket, a cushion, a layer of leaves, or even just spare clothes. Convection is what happens when moving air, like wind or drafts, pulls warmth away from you. Think about those biting winds that whip around in winter. Even indoors, a drafty window can cause the air around you to swirl and carry away precious heat. Block that air movement by sealing off windows and doors or by bundling up with wind-resistant fabrics. Finally, we have radiation, which is basically the natural heat you emit from your body. We lose heat all the time just by being alive, so it's critical to trap and bounce that heat back toward you. Reflective materials like those shiny emergency blankets or even aluminum foil help a lot here because they reflect your body's radiated heat and prevent it from dispersing into the atmosphere. By making sure you understand that the cold can grab your heat in these three ways, you'll know exactly what to do to fight back. Block contact with cold surfaces, seal off or minimize moving air, and reflect or contain your own natural body heat. You'll see these core principles popping up again and again in our strategies. Before we get into specific scenarios like being indoors, in a car, or out in the wild, let's look at some universal strategies that will help you no matter where you are. If you remember nothing else, remember these tips, because they apply across the board. The first universal principle is layering. Everyone says it, but there's a reason for that. Layering is basically about creating multiple air pockets in your clothing so warm air from your body doesn't escape. Start with a base layer that wicks moisture away, wool or synthetic. Then add a nice insulating mid-layer, fleece, wool, or down. And then top it off with something windproof. But it's not just about clothing layers. You also want to layer your environment. Hang blankets over cold walls or windows, or pitch a tent inside your home if you need a smaller, warmer cocoon. The second principle is to respect the synergy between food, water, and body heat. Your body is your primary heat generator, and it needs fuel and hydration to keep the furnace stoked. High-calorie snacks like peanut butter, nuts, and chocolate can be literal lifesavers in cold conditions, because they fuel your metabolism. Hydration is crucial too, since dehydration saps energy and makes it harder for your body to regulate temperature. If you can, drink warm liquids but never scorching hot. just warm enough that your body doesn't lose energy trying to heat it internally. The third principle is controlled movement. A little physical activity, like subtle exercises or even gentle stretching, can circulate your blood and generate heat, but you don't want to sweat. Moisture in your clothes can be a game changer, and not in a good way. Once you're wet, the evaporation process pulls heat away from your body at a rapid pace, which is dangerous. So, move just enough to stay warm, but don't start sprinting or doing burpees in a way that makes you break a sweat. Then there's the psychological component. We can't overlook how mental clarity and calmness can significantly aid in staying warm. When you panic, you can waste energy or make bad decisions, like running around in the cold until you're soaked in sweat. A calm, focused mind helps you systematically apply the tips you know, keep track of your resources, and stay motivated to do what's necessary. In short, remain steady and concentrate on what you can control instead of letting fear take over. Now, let's apply these universal tips to your home environment. When the power goes out in a snowstorm or other emergency, you do still have some structural advantages. Walls and a roof go a long way in blocking wind and precipitation. So your job is to maximize the insulation you already have and be strategic about where and how you spend time indoors. One of the first moves is to pick a single warm room. Typically choose the smallest space, maybe a bathroom, a walk-in closet, or even a tiny bedroom. The reason small is better is that your own body heat can make a noticeable difference more quickly in a smaller volume of air. You also want to seal the doors and windows with towels, blankets, or any spare fabric to stop drafts. If there's a gap at the bottom of the door, roll up an old rug or stuff it with clothes to block airflow. If you have bubble wrap lying around from packages, press that against the glass of your windows to create a simple but effective layer of insulation. Heavy curtains or blankets on your windows are also fantastic for minimizing convective heat loss. The thicker they are, the better. And if the sun is shining outside at any point, open the curtains on sunlit windows to let in some passive solar heat, then cover them right back up once the sun shifts or sets. Your body is creating heat all the time, so take advantage of it. Wear layers, even indoors. Start with a snug thermal base layer or leggings. Then add a nice insulating layer like a wool sweater and top it off with a looser layer that traps air. Don't neglect your head, hands, and feet. Those are areas where you can lose quite a bit of heat if they're not well covered. Grab some thick socks or double up if you need. Wear a hat or beanie and maybe a scarf or hooded sweatshirt. These might feel like overkill inside your own house, but believe me, if the heater's off, it's worth it. Also keep in mind that you can seal off bigger rooms that you aren't using. Close the doors to those and prioritize sealing up your chosen warm zone. Once you've confined your living area, you can bring mattresses, cushions, blankets, and even a tent. Yes, seriously, set up a tent indoors if you have one. It creates another layer of insulation. Huddle inside with whoever's in the house with you. Body heat multiplies in close quarters, so you'll find it easier to stay warm if several people share the same small space, which is basically the same concept as animals huddling together in the cold. If you can still use your stove, or if you have a gas range that doesn't require electricity for ignition, you can heat water. Then pour it into plastic or metal bottles that can tolerate the heat, wrap them in towels, and place them in your sleeping area or near you as makeshift radiators. Another hack is to fill a sock with dry rice or beans, microwave it for about 30 seconds if you've got a generator or partial power, and use that as a heat pack. It doesn't stay warm forever, but even a short burst of warmth can be a morale boost and help you avoid dipping too low in body temperature. Don't forget to keep up your morale. Drinking a warm beverage, if possible, can really lift your spirits. Sipping something warm helps you feel that toasty sensation from the inside out. Just remember not to drink anything scalding hot. You don't want to burn yourself or have to waste resources to cool the drink down. When nighttime comes, seal everything up tightly, and consider layering a reflective blanket or two, those Mylar space blankets, on the walls or ceiling to push radiated heat back towards you. It might look a little sci-fi, but it works. Switching gears, let's talk about how to stay warm in a vehicle if you're stranded or forced to wait out a storm. The car can be a tremendous help because it provides 4 walls of metal and glass around you, but it can also become an icebox if you don't take proactive steps. First, seal your environment. Grab any mats, spare clothing, blankets, or towels you have. Press them against the windows or tape them up if you have duct tape. If you have a reflective sun visor, flip it so the shiny side faces inward. That helps reflect your body heat back to you rather than letting it escape through the glass. If cold air is creeping through any gaps in the doors, stuff them with spare socks, rags, or newspapers. Even plastic bags can help. You'll want to insulate yourself from the cold surfaces in the car. The seat and floor can drain your body heat quickly. Put layers, jackets, extra clothes, seat cushions between you and the seat. If you have newspapers or bubble wrap, lining the floor can really help. Remember, conduction is a big deal when you're sitting still in a freezing car, so you want as many insulating layers as possible between you and the interior surfaces. A lot of people wonder about running the engine for heat. In an extreme emergency, you can run it for short periods, but you risk carbon monoxide poisoning if your exhaust pipe is blocked by snow, or if the car isn't well ventilated. Cracking a window for ventilation is always advisable if you do decide to run the engine briefly for heat, but that also lets cold air in, so it's a balancing act. If you have enough fuel, short bursts with the heat on might help, but you don't want to rely on that as a perfect solution. Take advantage of small items that can generate warmth without open flames, like chemical hand warmers. Tuck them into your socks, gloves, or under your armpits. If you have a thermos of warm liquid, sip it slowly to maintain a steady supply of internal warmth. Another trick is to fill a bottle with warm water from your engine, if it's still got some residual heat. Just be extremely cautious about handling anything hot near engine components, and make sure it's safe to do so without burning yourself or damaging the bottle. Your body heat is your best resource, so move a little bit to keep the blood flowing. Flex your toes, rotate your ankles, and do some gentle arm stretches. That helps prevent numbness and keeps you warm. Shivering is actually a sign that your body is actively trying to keep you warm, so don't panic if you shake a bit. However, if you start to feel drowsy or disoriented, or if the shivering stops but you're still cold, that's a serious warning sign that you might be slipping into hypothermia. Stay awake, stay alert, and if you have another person in the car, keep an eye on each other. If the sun's out even a little bit, try to park your car so the sunlight can shine in. Solar energy, though it might be weak in winter, can still provide a mild warming effect through the windshield or side windows. Then, once the sun goes away, recover the windows so you're not losing the warmth that built up inside. These small adjustments can make a big difference when you're trying to get through a cold night with minimal energy resources. Now, let's tackle the trickiest scenario of all, being out in nature without a ready-made shelter or the possibility of an open fire. Maybe you're out camping, and you lost your fire starting kit. Or you've been forced to evacuate your vehicle and wander on foot. In these cases, it's all about using natural resources and your own ingenuity. The first thing you need is insulation from the ground, because if you lie directly on cold earth or snow, conduction will quickly sap your body heat. Gather what you can: dry leaves, pine needles, moss, or even grasses, and pile them in a mound about 6 inches thick or more. This is your mattress to lie on. If you have a tarp or a poncho, lay that underneath or on top for extra moisture protection. Next, create a barrier against the wind. If you have time and it's feasible, you can build a lean-to with branches or use a fallen log or large rock as a natural windbreak. If it's snowy, you can actually dig into the snow to create a small cave or trench shelter. Snow is a surprisingly good insulator as long as you're not getting wet. Just make sure you have ventilation and be careful about potential collapse. Also, if you're near a large tree with low branches, check if there's a natural canopy where snow hasn't collected as heavily, and use that spot as your base. Without an actual fire, you can still try to warm certain materials and use them as heat sources. For instance, if you find rocks that have been in the sunlight, they might hold some residual warmth. You can place those rocks near your body once they're at a safe temperature. You don't want to burn yourself. Another unlikely friend is decomposition. If there's a composting area or a pile of organic matter, it can generate a bit of warmth as it breaks down, so you can use it as a mild heat source. But obviously make sure you're not getting too close to hazardous or foul-smelling material. Your clothing might be limited in the wild, so improvise. Stuff your clothes with dry leaves or grass to create extra insulation. Tie off your pant legs at the ankles and wrists if you have cordage, or even use shoelaces, so the insulation doesn't fall out. If you have any kind of plastic bag, you can slip that over your socks or even over your head as a makeshift hood. Just be absolutely sure not to block your airway. A plastic bag can serve as a vapor barrier, stopping heat loss from evaporating sweat, but again, use it carefully and never seal off your mouth or nose. Body position matters a lot. Curling up in a fetal position helps reduce the surface area through which you lose heat. If you're with another person, share a sleeping bag or lie back to back for shared warmth. It might not be the most comfortable arrangement, but it can be life-saving in extreme cold. Also, breathing into your cupped hands or into the collar of your jacket can help recycle the warm air you exhale. If you want to move around a bit to produce heat, do it slowly and methodically. You could do some squats, lunges, or brisk walking, but pay attention to how your body feels. The moment you sense you're starting to sweat, slow down or stop. The last thing you want is to soak your clothing in freezing conditions, as that can accelerate hypothermia. Make sure to keep your wits about you. It's easy to get depressed or panic in a survival situation, especially when you're cold and tired. But keeping a positive outlook and believing you can endure goes a long way. Distract your mind by planning your next move or focusing on small goals, like collecting more insulation material or adjusting your shelter. Mental toughness can't keep you physically warm by itself, but it will help you do all the right things to retain whatever heat you have. For all these scenarios, home, car, or wilderness, there's other steps you can take ahead of time and some tricks you can keep in mind no matter the setting. Preparation is your best friend, so if you know you live in a cold climate or you plan to travel in winter, make sure you're stocked with some key gear. One of the best preps is having a stash of Mylar space blankets. They fold up tiny, cost very little, and can reflect up to 90% of your body heat back at you. Keep a couple at home, a couple in your car, and maybe even one in your day pack if you go hiking. Chemical hand and foot warmers are also game changers. They last for hours and can be easily tucked into gloves, socks, or around your core. Duct tape can seal drafts, patch up ripped clothes, and hold up plastic sheeting. Bubble wrap is also surprisingly good at preventing heat loss. You can tape it over windows or even place it between your clothing layers if you're in a pinch. Consider creating a simple kit specifically for power outages at home. You could include thick blankets, extra batteries, a battery-powered or hand-crank radio, flashlights, first aid supplies, shelf-stable high-calorie foods, a few gallons of water, and any medication you might need. That way, when the lights go out, you can immediately grab that kit and start implementing your no-fire heating plan. In your car, always keep a winter survival kit if you live in areas prone to snowstorms. Pack a shovel, some kitty litter or sand for traction, extra blankets, a spare jacket, gloves, hats, snacks, water, a flashlight, and reflectors. Also, a portable phone charger or a jump starter battery with USB ports could let you keep your phone alive for emergency calls and even give a little warmth if the battery itself heats up. It's not a main strategy, but in desperate situations, every bit helps. If you're the outdoorsy type, be mindful of your gear. That means investing in reliable cold weather clothing, synthetic or down sleeping bags that are rated for low temperatures, tarps, and personal locator beacons if you roam far from civilization. Knowing how to build a shelter, how to insulate yourself, and how to ration food and water safely might not just be a convenience, it could be what keeps you alive if you can't start a fire. On top of all that, remember the value of a calm mindset. If you find yourself in a dire situation, take a moment to breathe. That alone can help you focus and recall these tips. Prioritize stopping heat loss first, then look for ways to generate or preserve warmth. Don't waste energy on things that won't help. It's all about efficiency and understanding that every resource, like clothing, blankets, snow, leaves, or even your own breath, can be used to fight the cold. We've covered a lot of ground today, from learning how the body loses heat to applying real-world methods for staying warm at home, in your car, or out in the wild. The key takeaway is that fire isn't your only option. Your body is already a heat source, and there are countless ways, some obvious, some more creative, to trap and recycle that warmth. Whether you're stopping drafts in a cozy home, blocking out a blizzard in your car, or piling leaves in the wilderness, these strategies are all about taking back control from the biting cold. I really hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I'd love for you to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with friends or family who might need these tips. Also, don't forget to check out the tagged products in the description. Those are curated items we believe can make a big difference in boosting your cold weather readiness, from quality gear to those small but powerful chemical warmers. By stocking up and staying informed, you can face winter storms, power outages, or backcountry emergencies with a lot more confidence. Above all, remember that staying warm without fire is not just about shivering in a corner. It's about adapting, using whatever resources are at your disposal, and preparing ahead of time. Once you understand the fundamentals, blocking conduction, convection, and radiation, Everything else is just creativity and common sense. So, stay safe, stay prepared, and keep your spirits up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.